India-Japan relationship is special, and we can only testify to that by just looking at the room here today. But also, as Mr. Das said, the effort that has gone into making this relationship what it is and getting it out of governments to all of us who are all invested in this particular relationship. I will now request Minister Hayashi to make his opening remarks, followed by Minister Jaishankar.
Thank you, Chair, and Namaskar, good morning. Thank you, Ms. Indrani Baguchi, CEO of this great Ananta Center, for your kind introduction. And also my friend Jay, Minister Jaishankar, let me also thank you for your generous hospitality every time we met. It is a great honor and privilege to be given the opportunity today to address the India-Japan Forum, which holds great significance for our bilateral relations, as Chairman already reiterated. 2023 is a crucial year in which both of our nations hold presidencies of the G7 and G20, respectively. Prime Minister Kishida and Prime Minister Modi agreed that they would work closely together during Prime Minister Kishida's visit here in March. Soon after that, we welcomed the Prime Minister Modi at the G7 Hiroshima summit in May. Since taking office as Japanese Foreign Minister 2 years ago, November, I myself have enjoyed working closely and personally with Minister Jaishankar. We have either held or attended 6 meetings together in person around the world, in Tokyo, here in New Delhi, New York, and also Melbourne so far. This doesn't include the numerous times we have bumped into each other at the fringes of international conferences. While I highly admire Minister Jaishankar as a grand strategist, I really enjoy my personal interactions with him, as he is very, very generous enough to laugh at my endless Beatles joke each and every single time. So Jay, I would like to ask that you will keep that patience for me today too. So I would like to highlight 2 key points. One is how to pass on the outcomes of the G7 Hiroshima summit to the G20 New Delhi summit. Second is how to develop Japan-India relations further, bearing in mind Japan's new plan for a free and open Indo-Pacific, or FOIP, which Prime Minister Kishida announced here in Delhi back in March. Allow me to move to my first point. The G7 Hiroshima summit was a historic meeting where we addressed various difficult challenges the world is facing at this turning point in history. Let me bring up the significance of engagement with partners beyond the G7. Bearing in mind that developing and emerging countries are raising their profiles in the global arena, Japan, as the G7 presidency, emphasized the strengthening of engagement with the so-called Global South at the G7 Hiroshima summit this year. This is guided by our conviction that unless we keenly listen to the voices of the Global South and show our commitment to cooperation on urgent issues facing these countries, our appeal for upholding the free and open international order based on the rule of law may sound like a mere slogan. Prime Minister Modi also emphasized the importance of giving a chance to the Global South to raise their voices at the G20 Foreign Ministers meeting in March. After the G7 Hiroshima summit, The G7 held discussions with 8 invited countries, including India, and there were various tangible outcomes. In particular, the leaders of the G7 and the invited countries confirmed to strengthen cooperation on global challenges, including food, development, health, energy and climate change, and the environment. These global challenges cannot be overcome by the G7 alone. They also reaffirmed their strong commitment to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. Regarding food security, which has been deteriorating due to Russia's aggression against Ukraine, the G7 and invited countries together issued the Hiroshima Action Statement for Resilient Global Food Security. In addressing such global challenges, the G20, which brings together the most influential countries of the Global South, is particularly important. So coordination with India, the G20 presidency, is critical as your nation hosted the Voice of Global South Summit back in January. At the G7 Hiroshima Summit, Prime Minister Modi called for concrete actions to address imminent global challenges. I would like to underscore that these are in line with the outcomes of the G7 Hiroshima Summit, and Japan supports India's various initiatives. Let me take this opportunity to express our government's appreciation to Prime Minister Modi for the valuable inputs for the success of the Hiroshima Summit. Ladies and gentlemen, let me briefly touch upon a few more examples of Japan's support to India's G20 presidency. Regarding the environment, the concept of lifestyle for environment, introduced by Prime Minister Modi, which asks everyone to live a life that is in tune with us, resonates well with our government's policy. Japan is also working on several projects as part of ushering in behavioral change aimed for decarbonization. This demonstrates our shared recognition that the change in the lifestyles of the people is really key to decarbonization. Another global challenge that I would like to highlight is food security. We commend India's leadership in advancing efforts that pertain to building resilient and sustainable agriculture and food system, such as launching the Millet and Other Ancient Grains International Research Initiative, Marahashi. We made sure that such efforts by India were included in the Hiroshima Action Statement for Resilient Global Food Security. There are just a few examples of a multifaceted and wide-ranging cooperation, and Japan is very much eager to continue working hand in hand with India towards the success of the G20 New Delhi Summit. Ladies and gentlemen, another aspect that Japan emphasized at the G7 Hiroshima Summit is to uphold a free and open international order based on the rule of law. The leaders of the G7 invited countries including India and Ukraine discussed the peace and stability of the world and agreed on the point that unilateral attempts to change the status quo by force cannot be tolerated anywhere in the world. They also agreed on the significance of the rule of law and the principles of the United Nations Charter. At a time when there were many pressing challenges, including Russia's aggression against Ukraine, Japan and India fully share the necessity to lead the world to cooperation rather than to division and confrontation. The free and open international order based on the rule of law is the key to realizing such a world. To elaborate on this concept, free means each country is free to make this decision based on its own sovereignty. The rule of law is essential for countries to enjoy such freedom. And open means respect for principles including inclusiveness, openness, and diversity. It is vital that we refrain from imposing barriers or excluding certain countries. This concept is especially crucial for smaller countries. In coordination with India, Japan intends to materialize such concept through realizing a free and open Indo-Pacific or FOIP. In March this year, Prime Minister Kishida announced Japan's new plan for FOIP here in New Delhi. This fact itself is a reflection of the critical importance Japan places on India. As your nation is an indispensable partner in achieving FOIP, a free and open Indo-Pacific. Moreover, the efforts to achieve FOIP expands beyond our collaboration with India, but to the whole South Asia region. This new plan makes clear that South Asia is one of the key regions and concrete efforts have been taking place. In April, we welcomed Prime Minister Hasina from Bangladesh to Japan, and the two Prime Ministers agreed to promote cooperation for FOIP. Prime Minister Kishida laid out the plan for the industrial value chain concept, which aims to improve the connectivity of the entire Bay of Bengal region, and expressed his desire to create synergies by organically linking corporations under the Bay of Bengal Industrial Growth Belt, Big B, initiative with the development of the northeastern region of India. Relating to the northeastern region of India, which I mentioned, which I understand is a priority of Prime Minister Modi himself. Japan has extended support for the development of the region, including through the Japan-India Act East Forum. Going forward, Japan will continue to contribute to the development of the northeastern region of India by promoting such projects as the Northeast Road Network Connectivity Improvement Project to enhance the connectivity in the region. I will be visiting Sri Lanka and the Maldives this weekend. There, I intend to promote concrete cooperation between Japan and these countries as well. I believe that we can together create synergies across this great region. Let us now come back to our bilateral ties with India. Here, allow me to cite Mr. Jai Shankar's book, The India Way, in which he describes Japan-India relations as the most natural strategic equation in Asia. I perfectly share his view, and we believe that close coordination with India is key to bringing peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific at large. In that vein, Japan intends to drive forward our cooperation in all areas to expand our special strategic and global partnership with India. Allow me to elaborate. The frequent and multi-layered high-level contacts have been the backbone of Japan-India relations. High-level exchanges have acted as the driving force to push forward our security and defense cooperation. We have conducted defense exercises on land, at sea, and in the air, including the first ever joint fighter exercise in January. The agreement between the government of Japan and the government of the Republic of India concerning reciprocal provision of supplies and services between the self-defense forces of Japan and Indian armed forces. It sounds a little bit long, but in short, AXA, is being utilized for these exercises. We see progresses on cooperative initiatives in new realms, including cyber and space, where discussions at the working level are being carried out. Discussions toward the realization of substantial cooperation in the areas of defense equipment and technology are also underway. The outlook for collaboration in the economic field is promising. Prime Minister Modi has placed economic growth as one of his top priority agendas and has promoted various economic initiatives, including Make in India, Digital India, and Clean India. As a measure to promote investment, Prime Minister Modi has identified 15 key sectors, including telecommunications equipment, automobiles, and applied chemical batteries that are eligible for subsidies. All of this have led to the remarkable growth in Japanese investment into critical technologies, such as medical equipment, electronics, and household electric appliances. So we have been encouraging Japanese companies to increase investment in India. For example, Prime Minister Kishida set the 5 trillion yen target of public and private investment and financing from Japan to India in the next 5 years from 2022. At the same time, we will work together with the Indian government to effectively address the difficulties that Japanese companies face in the Indian market. Ladies and gentlemen, last month, Japan revised its Development Cooperation Charter, which is our basic document on development cooperation. The new charter will enable Japan to better address development challenges we face, including food and energy, climate change, and digital transformation. Under this revised charter, we will continue to undertake efforts to build quality infrastructure in India, including the high-speed rail and urban transportations. Let me briefly elaborate on the high-speed rail project, which is the flagship project between Japan and India. By introducing Japanese bullet train Shinkansen technologies, this project will connect Mumbai to Ahmedabad at a distance of approximately 500 kilometers and is expected to improve the efficiency of transportation as well as promote economic development in area along the high-speed rail. We truly hope that the completion of this high-speed rail will enable India to achieve further economic growth. Ladies and gentlemen, to expand the breadth and depth of our bilateral relationship, it is crucial that we promote people-to-people exchange. As we are now in the post-COVID-19 era, this is an opportune time to revitalize various exchanges, such as today. Our prime ministers agreed to further promote exchanges at the summit meeting held in March. We designated this year, 2023, as the Japan-India Tourism Exchange Year, and we will bolster tourism. Japan and India will also promote Japanese language education, student exchanges, and the specified skilled worker system. We will cooperate to bring human resources from India to Japan, especially in the IT field. Last but not least, we will continue to cooperate through international organizations and multilateral frameworks. India is an integral partner for us in terms of the United Nations Security Council reform, where we have been working shoulder to shoulder as G4 members to achieve concrete results. We have also promoted practical cooperation in a wide range of fields through the Quad. In closing, I would like to reflect on some of the memorable moments of the G7 Hiroshima Summit. India elected Mahatma Gandhi's bust as a gift to the city of Hiroshima. Prime Minister Modi and Mayor Matsui of the city of the Hiroshima personally attended the unveiling of the bust. This was widely covered by the Japanese media. This gift is indeed a symbol that Japan and India are united in their steps towards peace. The leaders of the world visited the Peace Memorial Museum and deepened their understanding of the reality of the use of nuclear weapons. The leaders left comments in the guest book that reflected their reaffirmed determination to achieve a world without nuclear weapons. Prime Minister Modi described his visit to the museum as an emotional experience afterwards. Japan is fully committed to the success of the G20 New Delhi Summit. The theme of India's G20 presidency is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, or One Earth, One Family, One Future. Prime Minister Modi, in explaining the meaning of this theme, stated that we need to break away from zero-sum thinking and called for harmony among humankind as well as with planet Earth. The meaning of G20's theme is in line with the principles of Japan's FOIP, which strives for fostering cooperation at a time of deepening division and confrontations. We really look forward to continuing to work side by side with India in the spirit of harmony and cooperation for a better future of the region and beyond. I thank you for your kind attention. Dhanyavad.
May I now invite Minister Jaishankar to deliver his opening remarks.
Minister Hayashi, Indrani Bakchi, ladies and gentlemen, Shubh Prabhat, Ohayo gozaimasu, good morning. It's a great pleasure to be with all of you, and what I would like to do is really make 3 comments on preceding speakers and 6 points of my own. The 3 comments I have, I'll start with Mr. Tarun Das. I'd like to remind him that actually it was Japan where we first met, which brought us together as well. It brought me together with other people, but with you, I remember 1997, and Japan coming in as a partner country for the annual CII event. So when I think of India-Japan relationship, for me, you are very, very central to it, and I'm so happy today that we continue to have your leadership and guidance. To my friend Yoshi, we enjoy our Beatles conversation, but I'm still not quite sure whether he is John Lennon or Paul McCartney. But I think he thinks because of the India Association that I'm George Harrison. So I think it's a subject of continuing conversation. And my third comment, I really, Minister, valued what you said. I listened very carefully. And I would say, particularly the point you made about the explanation for, a free and open Indo-Pacific, what is the thinking behind it is something I found very, very thought-provoking. So now let me come to comments on my own. What really does Japan mean to Indians? And what does it mean, therefore, for the relationship? The first point I would make is for India, and I think not just for India, for many Asian countries. Japan is in many ways the exemplar modernizer. That it was Japan's effort to modernize and progress and industrialize in the 19th century, which actually became a trendsetter, which, obviously every country then followed in their particular moment, in their particular way. But it is still something which is very much, I would say, an example of relevance. In fact, whether in India, across the political spectrum, this is something which is widely appreciated. It's also a country for which actually there is a lot of goodwill from history. So we view history as a tailwind, not as a headwind. That is something which I think our Japanese friends need to appreciate. And they need to appreciate it because today, under Prime Minister Modi, we also have a great modernization effort. I mean, if I were to actually pick a single word description for the Prime Minister, I would actually use the word modernizer more than anything else. The idea of what we call Atmanirbhar Bharat, a self-reliant India, and India that is very nurturing of its culture, which can harmonize its tradition, modernity. I think a lot of Japanese can and should relate to it. So that is my first point, that Japan as an exemplar, Japan in a way as an influence, and Japan therefore as a natural partner in this modernizing India, which is also very much more confident about its culture and traditions. My second point, the impact of Japan on India. I think Japan has truly unleashed a number of revolutions in this country. There is the Maruti revolution, where it wasn't just the Suzuki car coming in. It wasn't only about a car coming in. It was a way, actually, it was an entire lifestyle, it was a thinking, it was an industrial culture which got changed. The second revolution was the metro revolution. I think it's had a very profound impact on the urban infrastructure of India. The third revolution is in the making, which is the high-speed rail. So I think when we complete that project, people will see in India, what a enormous ripple impact it has. Again, well beyond the world of railways and movement of people, that it actually has a transformational impact on the economy, on real estate, on mobility, even on social habits of people. And the fourth revolution, which I see on the horizon, which is emerging and critical technologies and semiconductor sphere, where again I do believe that there is a huge potential for us to work on. If you put them all cumulatively, I think Japan's had a very powerful impact actually on manufacturing in India, on our urbanization process, on the organization of logistics in this, and also has been a source of support in the Northeast, and that's one area, not just in the Northeast, but beyond the Northeast to neighboring countries. It's something that we hope to develop further. So, while recognizing this, I think my advice to our Japanese friends here would be that you are also witnessing a maturing, or I would say an India with greater capacities. So the relationship has to be far more collaborative than before. It will have to localize much more in India, we will have to keep changing with times if we are to keep expanding the relationship. My third point, the foreign policy point. If I were to look back at the convergence of the last 25 years, to me the convergence happened because you had a Japan which was desirous of stepping out into the world. And in India, which was actually looking east and acting east. And India moves much more out of its traditional comfort zone further east. Japan moves out of its comfort zone into the world and further west. And I think that's where the big intersection, in a way, has happened. And bear in mind that each, in their own way, were also globalizing. And today, when Minister Hayashi speaks about Bangladesh, or yesterday we had a discussion about Sri Lanka, and that is where he is going from here. We find today ability and interest and inclination to work with Japan in a number of third countries. I think when I look at Japanese policies and goals and Indian policies and goals, I think in many ways they are at least converging, in many ways actually supporting each other, and I think this today is a very important aspect of our relationship. My fourth point pertains to the Indo-Pacific and the Quad. I think the Minister, as I said, in a very thought-provoking way, analyzed the concept of how Indo-Pacific is described. But I would like to step back and really underline the point of history, which is that the Indo and the Pacific got really separated in 1945. It got separated because the dominance of the United States actually put the Pacific into particular spotlight, because you had the Japan relationship, you had the events in China in the late 40s, you had the Korean War, you had the Vietnam War. So what happened was that became for the United States a theater all by itself. And today, as the world is globalizing, as the US itself feels the need to look for more partners, we are seeing the reverse, a return to history, that the natural seamlessness between the Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean, I think is today creating what is increasingly accepted concept of Indo-Pacific. In fact, I was very happy that at the East Asia Summit this time, that there was, all the countries today recognized the validity of the Indo-Pacific. And in regard to the Quad, again, it's important to look at the Quad not in traditional terms, in orthodox terms, because very often, particularly the analytical world, is a very habituated world, that they apply old templates to new situations. So to me, Quad is the ability for countries in alliances to keep their alliances, but to look beyond alliances. And it is this, I would say, leap of strategic imagination, which actually the leaders and the governments of Quad have shown, and to the analysts in the room, I hope that you too would match our openness of mind. My fifth point, the future of the international order. The big challenge, really, the unknown world we are moving into. People describe it artificial intelligence, quantum, etc. But in many ways, it's a world, it's actually the term knowledge economy and captures a lot of that. So if I were to look at four big characteristics of the era that we are poised to enter, which is the need to build resilient and reliable supply chains. 2, the need to ensure trust and transparency when it comes to digital domain. 3, the need to uphold political democratic values and market economy. And 4, address the demographic challenge which the world is going to face, which is where the demand is not where the demographics is. And how do you synthesize these two? If I were to put these 4 as the primary characteristics of the world we are entering into, I would say that India, Japan are indeed natural partners, because I think these are 4 very powerful reasons for us to work. Finally, I would highlight to all of you, and again I'm building on a point which Minister Hayashi made about the people to people. But I think, you know, I travel a fair amount in India. I visit a lot of universities. I meet a lot of young people. I want to say really they find Japan very fascinating. Today, if you Japanese culture, Japanese language, Japanese food, really Japanese aesthetics is enormously appealing to the younger generations of India. So yesterday in our own talks we had a discussion how to increase the number of students. We also, I made the point that we need to think much more of online interactions because that is very much today a natural medium for young Indians to communicate and to actually relate. And that is something we need to build on. So if I were to sum up these remarks, I would say today, whether it is the future of the international order, whether it is strategy, whether it is economics, whether it's technology, whether it is culture, or indeed whether it's history or geography, I think we, India and Japan, have a lot going for each other. And I very much hope that a forum of people who are so invested in this relationship that in the course of the next 2 days, you will be able to develop this further and strengthen us in the government as we proceed with this approach. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Minister Jaishankar, and thank you, Minister Hayashi. And it is now my privilege to put you through the grind. Before we open up to questions from the floor. Mr. Hayashi, Japan's new national security strategy has been read and has been commented upon. In your view, where does India fit in this strategy?
Thank you so much. As we already talked at the podium, this region, the South Asia, India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Maldives, you know, these are a very key area in the Indo-Pacific. So that's why although our national strategy